Jan, can you hear me?
Yes, and can you hear me?
Yes. Hello and welcome, Jan.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I think you got a glimpse of the end of the of the first workshop, and we will transition directly to the second one. I'll introduce you in a second. But first, I wanted to mention the title of your of this session, the second workshop of today, which is dedicated to methodology, which is how value concepts can shape our lens on ecosystem and their management. And Jan, thanks for being with us. For everybody else, Jan Kervignot is an associate researcher at the International Research Center on Environment and Development, CIRED. Apologies, there was a typo in the agenda. We would put you in a different center just because there's one letter.
Yeah, it's a frequent.
Absolutely a typo. And he is also the deputy director of the Center for Public Policies at the École des Ponts Paris Tech. His research focuses on the application of decisions and social choice theories for the design of fair and efficient environmental policies. So we are spot on into our topic here. He formerly worked with the French Ministry for an ecological and solidary transition, where he participated to the coordination of the French National Ecosystem Assessment. He graduated from the École Polytechnique in Paris, in France, and holds a PhD in economics from Toulouse School of Economics. Jan, once again, welcome. The floor is yours. If you'd like to share your screen, we can get started.
Thank you, Francesco. And so, hello everyone. Can you see the screen?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Great. So you see it moving now?
Yes, it's working well.
Great. So I've tried to, following our scoping discussion, I tried to make it interactive. So I very much welcome you to set up your camera if you have them ready and you have a good connection. That will make the presentation more, let's say, friendly and pleasant for everyone. So I hope all of you get kind of an understanding of the title of the presentation. Thank you, Francesco, for introducing me. I won't go much more into the details about that. Maybe so I will start about the title of the presentation by asking you several questions, just to get a sense of how much you're familiar with these concepts that I will be talking about. The first is ecosystem accounting, and I would like to know if one of you would be willing to explain what is ecosystem accounting and what you see behind this idea of ecosystem accounting. Is everyone willing to give a try on that?
Any volunteers? Just in case, and unmute yourself, switch on the video, and well, we have somebody wrote in the chat. I honestly don't have any idea, which I think it's a good.
Good.
It makes even a stronger case for this workshop, I think.
So you have no idea. So I mean, going through the different topics, I'm not very surprised, because you're very much on the ecological science side, I would say. Maybe less on the policy side, from my understanding, and less from the social science side, maybe. But maybe I'm mistaken. So
it's a mix. Let me just mention another thing that came up in the chat. Another answer is to evaluate the monetary values of natural resources. This is another definition that appeared in the chat.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the answer I was expecting.
Ecosystem services in another chat.
That was exactly the answer I was expecting, because it is a usual misunderstanding, I would say, about ecosystem accounting. Ecosystem accounting is more than that, and it's more about how to observe ecosystem, how to structure data sets around ecosystems. And I hear you can see so kind of the answer. So if you want to know what it is, there is an official document published by the United Nations Statistical Division, which used to be experimental, but part of it is now a statistical norm. And it's a statistical system that is designed to monitor ecosystem. And what is important is that this system is not only about monetary values and even about the use of ecosystems, but also about the biophysical monitoring of ecosystems. So you have accounts, but accounts can be in monetary terms. And the idea is to structure multiple data sets through ecosystem accounts in spatial units. And you have all those data sets that are combined in a spatial grid in objects that are ecosystem accounting units, etc., etc. And to any ecosystem accounting unit, for instance, you would associate different characteristics, including biophysical and socio-economical characteristics such as used, etc. But it's not only about ecosystem services; it's about monitoring ecosystems and including their condition and their extent, for instance. And the only thing that's been acknowledged as a statistical norm at present is basically the biophysical side of ecosystem accounts. Okay, so that's something which I wanted to make clear before going further, because it's an important distinction to have in mind. It's not about putting monetary values, even not about putting values, but part of what I'll be talking about and what I'll try to show is that even if we don't if it's not reduced to monetary values, even the way we look at ecosystem, the indicator we choose within the set of accounts is driven by value judgment, and that's something which is basically the point I want to make today. The second element, which is often understood in different ways by people from different disciplines and backgrounds, is the word value. So would you try to define what a value is? How would you do it? How would you define it?
Again, anyone, either unmute yourself or write in the chat. Feel free to answer there. I'll be happy to read the chat to everyone.
So I said, for instance, that values can shape basically the way we look at natural at nature or ecosystems.
So we have somebody saying utility.
Yeah.
In terms of utility, somebody else saying it's the benefit that nature provides to us, which is a paraphrase.
Yeah. That's interesting. Also, basically, what you're telling me now is one kind of value.
Willingness. Wait, one second, Yen. I just have two others. Willingness to pay for ecosystem.
Yeah.
Monetary value and not monetary value.
Yeah.
And then we have a comment about the value is determined by the quantity and quality of services provided by the ecosystem.
Okay.
So quantity and quality.
So my grasp on that, my reaction to your answer is that you're focused on one specific kind of values, and that will drive the way you look at ecosystems, but they are specific and they are not completely inclusive. Value are actually broader than what you're saying. Values so are if you look, so let me give you some definitions from the IPBES, for instance. You have a preliminary work that's been done on values, a report that's available, and there is currently a methodological assessment that's being conducted about this notion of value. But would you go to the IPBES website and the glossary, you would find the following definitions. So the first important things to note about value is that you would have to go to a page where it's not value which is defined, but values in plural. And basically, value is something which is a polysemous, has multiple meanings. It can be a principle or core belief underpinning rules or moral judgments. It can be a preference. It can be the importance we give to something for itself or for others. It can also be something which is simply a measure. We can say the value of this indicator is that. So you see that it's a word that can be very understood in very different ways by different communities. This is something important. But in this presentation, when I will discuss about values, I will have in mind value systems, which is to say the set of values according to which us as people, as societies, as organizations, as individuals, we regulate our behaviors. Okay, so that's basically what underpins our collective attitudes and actions. And you see that working on values, being able to express values and to describe them in a rigorous way is important, because it will help you justify a decision, help you work on the motivation, the justification of collective decision and policy making. So that will be the way I will be defining values in this presentation. What is important is that in what you said, you focused the scope of values to ecosystem services, to use values, utility, you said. But there are other kind of values, other kind of reason why we would like to, for instance, conserve a species, or why we would like to prevent pressures to go beyond some thresholds. And I will come back to that on later on in the presentation. One of you said there are monetary or non-monetary values. So saying that, basically, yeah, you're inclusive, you cover everything, because basically you would but it's a way to, it's not about what value is, but more about the way we can describe values. This idea, speaking of monetary or non-monetary values. Okay, so there are different disciplines in social sciences that have developed tools to express or measures, sometimes in quantitative terms, what values are. Okay, what's important is to be aware of that there are some expertise that can be used to capture, let's say, to conceptualize and to capture values in order to guide decisions. And my discussion today will be about how to make values, let's say, explicit in your work, in order to ensure to build the policy relevance of your proposals. So let me now show you. So do you have questions or reactions to what I've been saying till now?
Yes, again, just to emphasize to everyone, at any point, please use the chat to ask any question, and I'll make sure it reaches Jan when it comes. But I think I don't see any.
Okay,
yeah.
So I go ahead. Do not hesitate to ask questions or react in the chat. And Francesco, if you can, I mean, do not hesitate to interrupt me if you think there is a question that could be asked at some point in my presentation. So let me show you now how the values we attach to ecosystem or to nature are conceptualized in different framework. And basically, I'm showing you here some concepts, some value concepts that are helpful to think about the value we attach to ecosystems. So the reasons underpinnings the way we interact with nature and the way we manage ecosystems. Okay, so I will mainly focus in this presentation, just as in the main policy science interface, on anthropocentric values, ways to say values that are tied to human beings, that are emanating from human beings. Okay, and among those values, you have instrumental values. Okay, but you also have intrinsic values. As humans, we recognize that, for instance, a species has a value in itself, and recognize that a species can have value, should be conserved, for instance, in itself, even if it is not useful to us. Okay, or even if it does not serve our own objectives, which would be an instrumental value. So this is what's at the top. If you go into the IPBES, so in your answer, there's been some answer of the kind, the benefit of nature. So there's been this concept of nature contribution to people. And you will find different categories of values that are attached to ecosystem with regulation and material contribution and non-material contributions, okay? And what's interesting as well, which I invite you to note, is this transversal component that you see, the maintenance of options that's been attached to this set of values. I will mainly focus on a conceptual framework I know much better, which is the conceptual framework of the French National Ecosystem Assessment, the FS program, to illustrate the point I want to make. Okay. So in this conceptual framework, values are conceptualized in slightly different ways, but as you see, we always find more or less the same things. So you have use values in this conceptual framework, and use values are ecosystem goods and services, okay? But you also have values that are not well captured by the ecosystem goods and services framework. And these, we call them patrimonial values in French, or heritage values, let's say, which is basically all values that are not use values. So you'd find this idea that aesthetic values, existence values, etc. Okay, and we also have this transversal component which we call ecological values in the FS conceptual framework. So these are conceptual framework where basically we have value concepts that are expressed, and one intention of those conceptual framework is to be inclusive. Ways to say that if there is they should be able to capture all existing motives underpinning ecosystem management. Okay, so for instance, one very important thing is to see here that the ecosystem service concept is used, but may have to be complemented with other concepts that are better tied, let's say, better suited to capture some motives underpinning ecosystem management. So now that I've been a bit clearer about what I mean by values, let's discuss a bit about how they shape our lens on ecosystems. So for instance, what I'll be presenting now is basically a reflection that we developed in a working paper with different kind of, where we discuss how different kind of values invite us to look at different type of indicators on ecosystems. And basically, one typology of values that can be useful to have in mind is the following. In a recent report, so we identified three different stakes, three different kind of stakes underpinning ecosystem management, and we tied them to different type of values. So we have socioeconomic stakes that are related to ecosystem goods and services. So there are ecosystems in some way provide us with goods. They provide services to our useful to our well-being, and this is one way to capture this socioeconomic aspect underpinning ecosystem management. But there are also patrimonial values. Patrimonial values or heritage values, as I said earlier, they are the reason why we want to conserve specific elements within ecosystems. Okay, and here I put an emblematic species. This is typically, I think it's an interesting example to think about what are the reasons why we want to conserve these species especially. And you can see that there could be different kind of motives. There could be different, and those motives would not be shared exactly, I mean, by the same groups of people in society as well. Some people will see in this species a constraint for their activities. Some people will see it as a symbol of beauty, a symbol, and maybe a symbol of their identity, etc., etc., etc. And there are different motives, and those motives are not, as you can feel, very well captured by the ecosystem services concept. There is not exactly a benefit to that always. Sometimes it's a motive. It's something which is better, which is difficult even to express properly. And this could be the issue about underlying this type of value, being able to express and share them properly. And you also have at the bottom this idea of ecological value. So here, I don't know if you recognize this figure. I guess so, because it's a very famous one. You have the planetary boundary framework, which is, I think, illustrating well the type of reasoning underpinning ecological values. So the idea is that ecosystems are complex systems, and that as complex systems, they behave as a whole. And if we push too much on some pressure, we don't know exactly how it will react. That's, for instance, if you think of the global ecosystem, the idea underpinning the 2-degree threshold and the 1.5 degree even. We know that beyond 2 degrees, we don't know how the system will react, and we have many risks. We take collectively huge risks. And that's the idea. So that's an example with climate change, but you have for every complex systems, let's say boundaries that you would not like to cross, or because you don't know what would happen, how the system would react if you went too far in those directions. So you see that the values underpinning what we call ecological values, for instance, could be called the precautionary principle. So that's one, justifying our collective willingness not to go too far in some directions. And more, let's say more broadly, our collective attitudes toward risk and uncertainty. They are very important in shaping these management targets about the threshold we put on pressures. Do you have questions on this typology, or do you find it clear?
I don't see any question in the chat, but again, everyone, please feel free to ask questions in the chat, and I'll bring them up to Ian.
So, because we're speaking about social science, maybe let me share some thoughts as well about among those boxes, which social science are better suited, let's say, or better equipped to deal with different values. You see that for socioeconomic values and even for ecological values, let's say in economics, there are many tools that have been developed in order to conceptualize those values. But you will also see that economics, for instance, will not be well equipped to conceptualize, for instance, patrimonial values, those heritage values. And you would need maybe other social sciences to inform and to get knowledge about what are those specific heritage or patrimonial values, for instance. So you see that it's fundamentally it's an interdisciplinary framework. You need different social sciences. Different social sciences will bring useful knowledge and complementary knowledge for getting a sense about all the values that underpins our collective objectives for ecosystem management. So let me give you one example
Jan, there's a question.
Yeah.
A question about patrimonial values. So, what exactly can you explain patrimonial a bit more, please? Somebody's asking. Colleagues from Fiji, and then we have a question from Ecuador, from Alina. Is traditional knowledge consider patrimonial values? So, I think there's a bit of confusion about what fits within patrimonial values, what you're calling now patrimonial values.
So patrimonial value would be, for instance, so if you have in mind the total economic value framework, it will include non-use values. Okay. So non-use values are heritage values. So, for instance, the fact that we want to conserve something because we feel an obligation to transmit it to future generation. So that's one example of patrimonial value. But it could be as well, for instance, if you think of the elephant we have in this example, it could be a dolphin, it could be an ape, it could be all those species that are considered as having an intrinsic values and as having to be considered even with specific rights, for instance. That would be also, I would say, a patrimonial value. So the fact that for a specific element within an ecosystem, a specific species or a specific individual within a species, we consider they have value in itself. So it will be very much related to intrinsic values as well.
And there's a question about whether there are optional values.
So option values. So there is a difficulty here, because if we take option values as maintenance of option in the IP-based framework, I'm not sure it will be exactly what I'm saying. I will be speaking about option values in the total economic value framework. Okay.
So maybe let's go ahead, and some of the things will get clarified when we move forward. But basically, maybe the confusion comes from the representation that you have here of the elephant. And I think what I get is basically you're saying patrimonial values is anything that is important to us, even though it doesn't necessarily produce an immediate economic return.
Exactly.
Yes, so I mean, we care about elephants, even if elephants don't work in forests anymore to carry logs or things like this. We care about elephants because we want to make sure that they don't go extinct.
Yeah, and so it's about conserving, basically. It's about conserving something and all the rationale behind that. It's not about, for instance, fostering ecosystem function because we benefit from it. But putting the elephant in this box is not completely fair toward the elephant, because it's important to note that any ecosystem or any species has many values attached to it, and maybe values that are attached to it, different values by different people, and that's important to note as well. So I put the elephant here because it's an example of an emblematic species that has patrimonial values, that for which there exist conservation programs. But the elephant can also provide services. So, for instance, you said about logging, helping about logging or whatever. It could also have a role in the overall functionality of the ecosystem. So it could even be. So it's a bit far-fetched, but basically, what my point is that any element of an ecosystem could have multiple values attached to it. So could be in each box potentially. Okay. What's important is to understand that you have different categories of values, and what I'm presenting here with socioeconomic values, patrimonial values, and ecological value is one typology, one possibility of a typology, which has an interest because it is attached to these different types of values. You have different way to different management objective that can be derived from them. Okay, I'll come back to that later. And basically, the idea of patrimonial value is about non-use values, let's say, or all what cannot be properly conceptualized as a benefit. Okay, a benefit is an increase of well-being of someone, of an individual or a group. And you know that there are things that can be easily conceptualized as a benefit, but there are things, there are reasons evoked by stakeholders sometimes about ecosystem management that cannot be properly conceptualized through this framework. And these values would be what I would call patrimonial values. Okay.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead. There are a couple of more
Yeah.
questions, about whether these are plans that can be considered patrimonial values or whether they are just intrinsic values. So what's the difference with ecological? But I think maybe it'll become clear in the next slides.
Yeah, let me give you an example. So here, the example I tried to show. So sorry, I'm speaking about a European example because I know it well, but it's just an example. It's about the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, which is a European directive that organizes, let's say, an integrated management framework for the marine environment. Okay, in European seas. What's interesting in this directive is that it structures the way we should set environmental targets according to descriptors. And you have 11 descriptors of the good ecological status of marine water. Okay. And what we do in this working paper is to try to see how this framework of values shapes management objectives on marine water. And what we observe is that ecological values are very much very important, actually. Although they are more difficult to grasp, we observe that there are many management objectives that are related to the fact that we don't want to go too far on some pressures. And we have objectives, so environmental objectives that are being set in order to maintain pressure under some threshold. So here you see, for instance, it's about eutrophication, it's about the level of contaminants that goes into the seas, the level of the quantity of marine litter, the quantity of underwater noise. All this is about not to go too far in order to maintain the overall functionality of the system. Okay, but you also have objectives that are related to the heritage dimension of those water, and good ecological status is also related to that. And this is basically the descriptor one about biodiversity that sets objectives, conservation objectives on some species, some specific species. And you observe that there are some objectives that are related to socioeconomic stakes. One is about the state of commercial fish stocks, fish species. And another one is about the contaminants in seafood. So having the idea that the marine environment is also the support of marine aquaculture, and that it should be suitable for that. So you see that the way we are invited to observe the marine environment and to define the good ecological status of marine water is very much structured according to values, and that you could categorize pretty easily the objectives that are observed according to the 3 categories that I mentioned earlier. So that's an example where basically we see how values will lead us to observe, to monitor specific dimensions of ecosystems. Here being the ecosystem being marine waters, okay, the marine environment. So I've been talking a bit about how values can be tied. So I presented you how values can be conceptualized. I showed you some framework, some framework that are interdisciplinary that helps conceptualizing values. I showed you how it can be tied to the way we monitor and we manage ecosystem management. I would like to give you two conclusive remarks before concluding about ecosystem management and emphasizing some common mistake or misunderstanding, let's say, that I observed in my former activities. So one is so what I call mistake here is basically let's say making some choices about management, about the way to conceptualize things that have underpinning values, but which are not always made explicit. Okay, and one which is important, I think, is to choose reference level as a pristine level. So you all have in mind, I guess, valuation framework or management framework that sets as a reference level a pristine environment, a pristine ecosystem, an ecosystem without any anthropic perturbation. And setting that as a reference level is actually choosing some values. Is actually and what's important is to it could be legitimate in some instance. In others it may not be. It may be too very different from the actual objectives of policymakers or societies in some environment. And what's important is to try to get a sense about how the objective level, the target that are taken, are related to values, and how these values are in line, let's say, with the values of the people concerned by the decision. So here is a set of three concepts that I found pretty interesting and that are presented in the working paper, which are concepts which are, let's say, every time more. I mean, that are going from science, from pure science, pure, let's say, natural science, to society. And you would have environmental targets that are the actual management objective that you observe in society. Okay, so this is something which is often, I mean, which exists, and you would take as it emerged on the ecosystems where you would have your project, for instance. At the other extreme, you have environmental limits. Environmental limits, they are basically, let's say, pure scientific statements saying that going beyond those thresholds, this population of a species may collapse. The risk of collapsing is greater than this level. Okay, so this is purely scientific. What basically you could define as well is what we would call an environmental standard. Let's say a target which has been cleared out irrelevant political factors, but which would embody collective values and considerations, for instance, of costs and trade-offs. So let me show you just in order to illustrate what I mean by environmental standards, is basically the way if you look at the ecological values here at the bottom, you find, so there are thresholds that have been defined by Stephen et al. If you go to their papers, they explain pretty well how these thresholds embody some values, has to consider some attitudes, for instance, toward risk and uncertainty, etc., etc. So this discussion, just to make clear that when you define a reference level when you assess something as compared to reference level, for instance, the cost to achieve some level. What's important is to try to have in mind and make explicit why this reference level is legitimate in the specific context of your study. What are the underlying value? No matter, I mean, that's something which is which can be made explicit. That's the important, and often is not very clear in the work I've been seeing. Another last remark is about the character of the value frameworks I showed you. So on the one hand, these conceptual framework, they are inclusive. They are made so that they can basically encompass a lot of values. But actually, they will not. They focus on specific values, and they do not include some of them. Some values that could be of importance for actual ecosystem management. Could you tell me, for instance, what's missing in this framework or the other that I showed earlier?
Are you asking an example of what might be what these frameworks might miss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any ideas? And can anybody think of something that doesn't fit within the categories that we have here in the framework? Maybe you want to give an example, Jan, to kind of start the thinking in one direction.
Yeah. So these are values that are attached to ecosystems. They will be useful to identify, let's say, specific stakes. Okay, but for different in the management, the actual management of an ecosystem you may have different stakes, separate stakes that will be shared by different groups, and then that might be in conflict, for instance. And one important thing is to think about how to achieve a decision that is actually shared by the people concerned by the decision eventually. And the way through which you will, let's say, aggregate or go from separate stakes to a common understanding, a shared understanding of a decision or of a management objective is something that also involves values. You could call them political values, you could call them social values, shared values, social norms. All those values are not, let's say, explicitly modeled in this framework, conceptualized in this framework. This framework is made to identify, let's say, specific stakes, I would say, for ecosystem management. Okay? But when you have a collection of stakes, then you also have to discuss about a management plan or to the way to conciliate different stakes when they cannot be achieved at the same time. And this way to go from, let's say, the sectoral or the individual identification of stake to the collective management objective is also something which is a value-laden process, okay? And this is basically one thing I've not been discussing much, but which deserves to be emphasized, for instance. That's an example. Another example are the non-anthropocentric values that I discussed at the, I mentioned at the beginning. In those framework for policy, basically, we mainly focus on anthropocentric values, which are already, let's say, a broad range of values, which are capturing, I would say, the whole of what stakeholders might express as a matter for them. Okay.
Yes, Ken. There's a comment.
Yeah.
Do you have, how many slides more do you have?
Just a conclusion.
Okay, perfect. Just one comment about spiritual connection as something that might not fit within,
Yeah.
or there's a question whether is that doesn't fit, or is it a non-material? Does it fall into the non-material category?
What does not fall in the non-material?
Spiritual connection. So basically, religion, cultural beliefs.
I think so I'm not an expert of the IP-based conceptual framework, and I hope in the future report on values there will be more, let's say, clearer conceptualization about that. I think it would fall within this category. I think it would fall because basically this framework is made to be inclusive.
Yeah.
And this is what you're telling now is an important component of values. It's an important value that can basically that needs to be conceptualized through those frameworks. So my grasp is that, so even though they put experiential, inspiration, identity, I guess this is meant to capture what you mentioned.
Okay. Thanks.
So
we can move to the questions, and then we will give the questions.
Okay, so let me conclude just with the main messages, a wrap up. So I've been insisting a lot on values. It can seem as a super conceptual thing that's not very useful, etc. I hope I've convinced you a bit that they can actually be useful, and they can help you to reinforce, to consolidate the policy relevance of your work, of your research. And basically, the values are useful as concepts because they would allow you to better align the knowledge you produce with policymakers' needs. Okay, knowing what they need to decide, what is their decision framework, and what is basically the input they need in their decision framework in order to better decide, would reinforce what we could call the salience of your work. The other important aspect and interest of let's say being more rigorous on values is to be able to work on the legitimacy of the knowledge you produce. So basically, by being able to capture and conceptualize societal expectations, you will be better equipped to align your work with these expectations, or at least to understand how your work locates as compared to, let's say, what matters to stakeholders. Okay? And salience and legitimacy, I guess, you know this publication by Clash et al., which was very influential, and that insists on those two conditions plus the scientific credibility. But those two conditions are important for having an actual impact of knowledge. Okay. What I wanted to insist as well on is that values are not well conceptualized by a single social science. All social sciences are useful to conceptualize values, and that they have been developing different tools that can be very well suited to different type of values. Okay, so I encourage you to be curious about those tools and to try to think about how you could use them in your specific work. For instance, in economics, just to mention one tool, there's one which is pretty well used is our choice experiments. So you would go and ask people what how they would choose, and from these choices you would infer what are their own preferences, individual preferences. But this is not the end of the story. Then you have individual values, but how you build, your expertise, the knowledge you will produce with that is something which needs to be made explicit. Okay. And also, what I wanted for you to have in mind and to keep in mind in your research is that there exist now robust interdisciplinary conceptual frameworks. So they are not completely stabilized. And the last question we had is an example of that. But they are emerging, and they are very useful for having an inclusive view on values. Inclusive meaning that you would be able to capture what matters for stakeholders or decision makers, and that's important to try to understand the concepts that can be used for that, and this would be useful for integrated valuation. Okay, these are, let's say, my main messages. I hope I've been convincing you through some of the examples of the definition I gave you. And if you have questions, reactions, or questions specific to your projects, for instance, etc., do not hesitate. I think we have some time left. Francesco?
Yeah, about 5 minutes. So I'd like to invite, thanks a lot, Jan, for this kind of really structuring presentation. I'd like to invite anyone who has a question, including on how this would impact their own project, to come forward. Please share your question in the chat. So I think from what you say, basically, you highlighted the importance of questioning the values that underpin specific measurements of what we're looking at when we look at biodiversity and ecosystem services, and actually doing that. So questioning the values, trying to identify them, making them explicit, is actually not only importance in absolute terms, in terms of curiosity, but it's also very consequential when it comes to sending messages to policy, to people who take decisions, right? So that they can actually weigh things appropriately, but also has important consequences in terms of how we design actions to reach specific targets or to act on environmental targets, on biodiversity conservation targets, etc. So it's really kind of a call to despite being abstract in terms of the framework, it's really a call to make sure that it happens so that things can be operationalized effectively. Now, we have a few questions coming in. Let me just read them. There's a question from Alina from Ecuador. She asks, where does non-material information fit in those values? I'm not sure. Alina, can you just clarify what do you mean by non-material information? For example, traditional knowledge, etc. Of course, there's a whole question on compatibility, and this is where I think the third dimension of Cash's pieces, the credibility is important, because credibility is also about the rigor, of course, used to identify things and quantify them. So there's also a question on how do we account? How do we take into account? How do we take into account? Yes, side is when on the other side you have numbers.
So let me answer to this question. And so when I asked that, you could have answered as well epistemic values, let's say. So values that are driving what we think is true from what we think is not true, from what we think is not giving us reliable information about the external world. Okay, So this we could call epistemic value. The values that are driving the way we judge the quality of information we get, the way we judge scientific credibility of information. So the debate about traditional knowledge, I think, is a lot about that. How should we use this knowledge, and what is the value of this knowledge as compared to, let's say, a knowledge that's produced through the scientific methods, etc., etc. Okay, and I would say on that this is the arena where the debate has to be discussed. So if you're working on traditional values, you would have to discuss why the way you capture this traditional knowledge is something which is bringing relevant information, reliable information about something you would have to define. Okay. So my answer is that it's part of what's missing in what I've been presenting. I've not been discussing a bit about that. So that could have been.
Yes. What you're also saying is that, it's not just about adding traditional knowledge to this reflection. It's about recognizing that the way we structure the information currently is also based on values, right? So it's about making those values compatible and
what recognized as validate proof or not. But I mean, traditional knowledge is something. One thing you could also say is that science is so slow sometimes. Our data sets are so slow to capture the data, etc. We need to rely on the observation of ecosystem managers, etc. So we need ways to capture this information, this more informal information, and for environmental science, it's a huge challenge, because you have many informal knowledge in society, and finding reliable ways to capture it is an important challenge. So this is information for sure that has value because it will help us to better decide, to better monitor, and it will fill gaps. It will fill data gaps that are and knowledge gaps maybe that are important as well. So
absolutely, thanks a lot. I don't see any other question, but I think again, I think it's because there was a lot of food for thought in what you presented, and I think leaving us with 3 questions on the screen, I think it's absolutely very, very relevant. So, how are values shaping your projects? Of course, for the teams, research teams, part of this lab, and are they relevant? Those values, and are they legitimate? So, how can you actually use an analysis of the values underpinning what you are trying to find out to advance the relevance and legitimacy of the findings? I think was an absolutely relevant question. So thanks a lot, Jan, for this presentation. We will be sharing, if you have other resources you'd like to share with the group in terms of interesting examples, for example, of how how values are taken into account into the design of not only frameworks but also management approaches. I think everybody would be interested in getting a few references on that. So thanks a lot for your time and for jumping on board. We're now in a half-an-hour break for the workshops. Everybody feel free to stay connected, but we will be reconnecting in half an hour for workshop 3, so 3 p.m. Paris time for the workshop number 3. Again, once more, thanks a lot, Jan.
Thank you, Francesco. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day.
Thank you.